Hello there, and welcome back to another little episode of Strife's Talking Points, where I go over the things in the news that I feel are important and try and keep the discussion going. Today we have a breaking news story from NPR. Supreme Court strikes down conviction of Mississippi man on death row for 22 years. This is the Curtis Flowers story, and before I begin, I would always like to say please like, share, comment, and subscribe to this so we can have the discussion in the comments. I would really like to know what people think on this, because as I cover things, it really is important to get feedback from people so that we can all communicate with each other. Just beginning, the Supreme Court has struck down a conviction of African-American death row inmate who was prosecuted 6 times for the same crime and by the same prosecutor, a man with a history of racial bias in jury selection. Writing the court's 7-2 majority, Justice Brett Kavanaugh said, "The numbers speak loudly. Over the course of the first 4 trials, there were 36 black prospective jurors against whom the state could have exercised a preemptory strike. The state tried to strike all 36. Essentially what the majority opinion, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, said is, out of 36 possible selections, you struck all 36. Which is overall very important to one of the reasons why this has been gone through so many times, but as is not as important when you go to why there have been 6 trials on this. I'll get into that in a little minute here. Curtis Flowers has spent 22 years on death row in Mississippi. In his case, the same prosecutor struck 41 of 42 prospective black jurors. Justice Clarence Thomas, the court's only black justice, had the minority opinion, which was joined in part by Justice Neil Gorsuch. The majority opinion is so manifestly incorrect that I must proceed to the merits, Thomas wrote. Flowers presented no evidence whatsoever of a purposeful race discrimination by the state in selecting the jury during the trial below. Justice Thomas, the only black justice, basically said there was nothing in there that he saw that would go to race. And as I go along here, I'm going to kind of cover some pretty relevant information overall to the trial. You do have the first 3 trials. The first 2 trials were the prosecutor, for whatever reason, deciding to prosecute on one charge, and they were overturned by the Mississippi Supreme Court. Evidence presented by the state, and this is from Wikipedia, was prejudicial because it went beyond that necessarily to prove the murder of Tardy alone. Basically, he had information for all the other stuff. In addition, the prosecutor was held to have asked questions not in good faith and without bias in fact. Leading questions, very polarizing, trying to push the narrative he chose. Both of these reasons were sufficient to overturn the verdict, and the court remanded the case for a retrial, basically saying you got to do this again. Second trial, again, went for a single murder conviction. Derek Stewart at the Tardy store. Again, the court reprimanded him and overturned it and basically pushed it back again to retrial. The Mississippi Supreme Court, which held that the court had improperly allowed evidence regarding crimes not on trial to be admitted and that other errors were made. Again, trying to show evidence not related to the crime itself. So if you have someone convicted of stealing, you wouldn't bring up evidence of something they're not convicted for on an unrelated incident or an unrelated crime. You have to focus in what you're talking about so that the trial focuses on the crime before you. In the third trial, February 2004, a conviction of Flowers on all 4 murders, and the jury sentenced him to death. The verdict was then overturned by the Supreme Court, which held that the state's preemptory challenges in jury selection, the strikes knocking out jurors, was racially motivated and thus unconstitutional. Now I'm going to bring up a little fact here. The final jury consisted of 2 African Americans and 10 whites. The county he's being tried in is 45% African American, 45% black. So you would have to assume that the overall makeup would be essentially, if it was just black and white, and there are, what does that count, 12 jurors? So it would be basically 6 and 6 or 8 and 4, some combination 7 and 5, but it wouldn't break to, 5 to 1. That wouldn't be a valid ratio unless you had some type of, I don't know, prejudice. That's the only word I can think of here when I talk about this. In the 4th trial, here we go. The state Supreme Court stated that their disparate treatment by the prosecutor and evaluation of black compared to white jurors on issues such as jurors' connection to the defendant and the jurors' willingness to use the death penalty. That's why he said he was knocking them out. All right. He struck blacks from the jury on grounds for which he did not strike whites. So the reasons he gave, he only used for blacks. He didn't use those same for whites. 4th trial. The prosecutor did not seek the death penalty in this one. However, the state did exhaust preemptory challenges in its jury selection, resulting in a jury of 2 African Americans on it. So then you have a 7-5 split in favor of conviction. Votes could be classified by race, among other factors. 7-5, so at least 3 of the non-black jurors also went with them. And then it led to a 5th trial. 5th trial, 9-3, concluded in a mistrial. 1 juror held out against conviction. Again, the prosecution dropped the charges against Bibbs. Here we go. The trial judge accused him of perjury, James Bibbs, for allegedly trying to taint the jury pool by suggesting to the jurors that evidence was planted against Flowers. The prosecution dropped the charges against Bibbs for lack of evidence. A 6th juror, an alternate, was charged with perjury for lying during jury selection when he said he did not know Flowers. So 5th trial, total failure of the system. 6th trial, a jury for the 6th capital murder trial convened in Winona, Mississippi, June 10th. 11 whites, 1 black. Following 30 minutes of deliberation, was found guilty on all 4 counts. The Supreme Court ruled in the Flowers case was among 3 capital cases it was remanding to lower courts to review for racial bias jury selection. In November 2017, the Mississippi Supreme Court renewed its prior determination and affirmed Flowers' conviction and sentence from the 6th trial. However, moving forward, in June 2015, a writ of certiorari was filed with the United States Supreme Court seeking a review of the Mississippi court rules, and we have that out today. The Supreme Court is saying, yes, there was racial bias in this conviction, and basically it's either going to be tried for a 7th time or released. My expectation on this is that the prosecutor for this, Doug Evans, who has already tried Evans, this is from Clarion Ledger, part of USA Today Network, USA Today Network, who is running for re-election unopposed. I believe they state this. Evans was elected in 1992. He is now running for re-election unopposed. My assumption is this will go to trial a 7th time, which to me sounds unprecedented, but you never know. Most of the challenges that have been filed up are actually called Bastin challenges. This is Bastin challenge refers to an objection on the validity of preemptory. I can't speak. peremptory challenge on the grounds that the other party used it to exclude a potential juror based on race, ethnicity, or sex. A peremptory challenge is the right of the plaintiff and the defendant in a trial to have a juror dismissed before trial without stating a reason. And from what I've read on these as well, there were approximately 500 people picked in the jury pool. 300 of those were immediately excluded, then it dropped to 200, and then of course as jury selection rolls in, they just start knocking out people left and right based on whatever reasons they choose. However, in a community that's so close to being 50-50, personally, I would think the jury would be more representative of the community, which is why you still have the trial by jury of your peers. But I don't know. This is one of those oddball things where, as of now, the Supreme Court says, yes, this did happen. And this is where we're at. And this is more from NPR. But in the sixth trial with one black juror, the jury convicted and the Mississippi Supreme Court upheld the conviction, ruling that this time there had not been any racial discrimination in jury selections. Now it's up to the state whether they will try him again. As I said, Doug Evans, who is the attorney for the community, is running, Evans is district attorney for Mississippi's 5th Circuit Court, which covers this area, and he's elected in 1992. He's running for re-election unopposed. I can't see any reason he wouldn't try this man again. Not because I believe that Curtis Flowers is guilty or anything in that realm. If you've done this over and over and over again, it is the feelings about how the law works. This man would push for the 7th trial. Curtis Flowers has been in jail for 22 years. He is now 49 years old, so basically since 27, the prime of his life, he's been put away. Would the state let the case rest and call it time served, or are they going to continue another trial? I would like to make a final note here about this, and that is there is this In the Dark series, apmreports.org, where they have the In the Dark series, and they have some audio podcasts. There are a bunch of these episodes where they discuss the varying parts of the conviction. And I'm probably going to be listening to this information over the next few days. I'm not sure how long it's going to take to go through it. Each one seems to be about 40 minutes long. I'm completely new to this story. However, it is interesting as a final note here that the extreme conservative, Justice Kavanaugh, says that everyone was so terrified of is ruling in favor of this being racial discrimination, whereas the I would say Clarence Thomas is definitely a black conservative, is saying that no, it's not. There's no evidence of it. So that's my thoughts. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, let me know what you think. And if you want more information on the story, podcast forms available. Again, I don't know this site. I've never seen it before. It just came up in my searches and my investigation here. apmreports.org. Thank you all for watching, and have a great day.